Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing, the Fawn Pod, the Fawncast. It's Cody, and I'm here with my weekly installment at this point of the James Bond 60th anniversary series. Checking out today Roger Moore's last outing as James Bond in A View to a Kill. Before we get to that, I just want to say I'm recording this on the week following up from Man Weekend, or the Man Olympics that were held here at the house. And it was such a wonderful time with all the guys here. Various activities. There were 7 of us, all the way down to 4 of us, or really just 2 of us on the last day, last hours. But a lot of fun there, a lot of good times, a lot of laughs, watched a lot of crappy movies, played a lot of video games, played a lot of board games, did a couple of escape rooms, and went out to a big fancy dinner at Fogo de Chao. And it was just a fantastic time. So many good memories. Our Olympic winner this year was Justin Henry, one of our co-hosts here on the podcast. We haven't held an Olympics in a few years, actually, maybe more than a few years. So we had events all week long, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I guess we should say. And then I think we stopped for Monday morning. But did that, and then essentially Justin won himself a real nice big ceramic Red Bull. It's about a foot and a half long. It's a pretty good size. It's still here at the house currently because he's going to repick that up when he comes down from a Halloween party, because he didn't want to fly with it, which makes sense because it is quite large. But shout out to those guys. Super fun time with all of them. You can listen to one of 2 podcasts we recorded that we dropped this past Monday, and that was as we were playing the game But Wait, There's More, which is a party game. Check out our episode from Monday if you haven't done that yet. Also, a little game review in there for you as well. So kind of a fun one. We have one more podcast that we recorded at Man Weekend, which we will have coming up for you here in the coming weeks. Could be next week's episode, could be a week or 2 down the line. Just kind of depends what we get to here with our schedule. We have some fun things on tap. We just committed to playing another indie video game. And also, there's a couple TV shows I know that are starting soon that people might be interested in watching, either the debut of or continuing on with the series. Some good stuff out there right now. So exciting time for projects for all of your hosts here at Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. That all being said, let's get to the main show tonight. This is our, holy cow, 16th installment of Classic or Crap for the 60th anniversary James Bond series. As I mentioned, it's Roger Moore's last outing in A View to a Kill. We're going to pick up after this with 2 James Bond movies with Timothy Dalton, and then we're going to get to Pierce Brosnan for 4, and Daniel Craig for 5, and that's going to finish us up, unless I want to get really wacky at the end and maybe watch like the Austin Powers movies or something. As we're coming to, well, tell you what, let's go through today's first before I talk about where we are standing at right now in terms of the rankings. All right, let's get into this. So, View to a Kill. I want to start with the title and theme on this one, as I typically do. As far as the title on this, A View to a Kill, it's a cool name for a movie, but it's an odd name for this movie because we have kind of another bomb threat type plot where we have, big explosion, boom, boom, and evil bad guy trying to orchestrate that, more than just like, I don't know, View to Kill to me sounds more like someone's going to shoot someone, I think. But I guess maybe it does have something to do with the villain we'll talk about in the end here having his blimp in the right spot to watch as his evil machinations come to be at the end of this film. So I guess maybe that's where they're going with this. But to me, it seems more like, I don't know, it seems more like you are going to watch somebody be shot or something myself. So I'll give it a 3 out of 5 on the title on this one. For the movie theme, they went to, this is in 1985, so what band could you get in 1985 that was hotter than Duran Duran, who sings the titular theme to A View to a Kill, rather, theme song. And if you know me, I have a weak spot for Duran Duran. I always have. They were my Funko Pops of the week just a week or two ago here at school because I love me some Duran Duran. Um, so many good songs they have, and their greatest hits album is amazing. This is another one, probably just because I think of only a few of these songs in the Bond soundtracks as songs that are a song first and a Bond theme second. Live and Let Die certainly is a song that has kind of transcended the series. And there's some other ones as well that are in here, like Spy Who Loved Me is another one maybe that I kind of associate more with the song than the actual movie that it goes with. And this is one of those to me. And I stress that because if you're not a big Duran Duran fan, which is probably most of the world, then this may just sound like another Bond theme to you. But to me, this is great. It's got a great build with the dun, 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 dun. It's got that fun background, and then you have the kind of sultry singing here by Simon Le Bon. Sounds really nice. And for me, this is a 10 out of 10. And I realized I'm a little biased on that, but it's fantastic. It's a really fun one. I love Duran Duran and their voice and everything else. So great one. Shout out to John Barry, who is the composer of the rest of the music in the Bond themes. This is, I don't know how many movies in a row he has done, but he does some orchestral versions of A View to a Kill throughout the movie. And he has, in all these movies, and I haven't given him props, but he has the ability to take the song that's sung by some pop star and then somehow, string it together in a orchestra setting so that it sounds beautiful in whatever scene it is. And he can play these for tension. He can play these for romance and kind of a softer moment. He really is adaptable at how he can make the music fit the scene in the movie with you after a couple seconds recognizing that it's still that Duran Duran song, or still that Sheena Easton song, or still that Paul McCartney song, or whatever. So shout out to him, even though he's not included in the official theme song rating, but does a great job in this one as well. I enjoyed his renditions of View to a Kill. Okay, on to our acting categories: Bond portrayal, the Bond women, and the villains. Well, let's start with Roger Moore because it is his final out as Bond, as I mentioned. And he had been getting older through several of these. Like we mentioned in the last one that Connery was old when he came back to play Bond and Never Say Never Again. And Roger Moore was actually 3 years older at that time. This is now 2 years later than that, 85. And this is probably the first one where he looks old, I would say. So I don't know behind the scenes if he chose to discontinue the role or if they wanted to go in a younger direction. But I do know that this is the first one that he seemed like he was on the older side playing Bond. Notably so when it was close-ups of the face and, even comparing himself to some of the women he met and some of the other characters that he interacted with, he seemed older than he did in the other ones. He puts in a serviceable role here with this, I would say. His performance is pretty decent. I mean, he still is basically the same Roger Moore we've had in most of the other movies. And his scores in those movies, with very minor exceptions, have only really swayed one way or another a little bit in terms of the score here. This one's fine. His lines are serviceable. I don't feel like he's given quite as many puns as he typically does. But his action sequences were fine. His dialogue delivery was fine. His physical stuff, you could tell there were some scenes they cut away to some stunt actors to do the stunts that Bond needed to do in some of the scenes. But he does okay in this one. Give him a 12 out of 15 for his score and his final outing. As far as Bond women in this film, it's hard to pick just a traditional one because the only one that really fits kind of the mold or the, what do I want to say here, the path that they usually run Bond women through in these films is a character named Stacy, who shows up about an hour 15 into the movie. She's mentioned or shown, I guess, briefly in a scene earlier in the movie, but then kind of shows up later as the plot takes some twists and turns. Super beautiful lady. This is Tracy, no, I'm sorry, Tanya Roberts. It plays Stacy. So Tanya plays Stacy. She kind of has this whimpering scream that she does through the whole movie, which is simultaneously annoying, and I kind of loved her for it. But very beautiful. She's serviceable as far as taking care of herself. She does do a little bit of action towards the end of this film, and she was okay. Nothing to get real excited about. There really hasn't been many standout women performances in these movies so far, and we'll see if that changes the rest of this as it goes through. But I give Stacy a 9 out of 15 for the woman's score. On to our villains out of 10. This is a fun one because we kind of have a little bit of an all-star party here in that Roger Moore is in his last film, and then we get the delightful duo of Christopher Walken. Walken, it's what he does. He does those things. And playing Max Zorin. And then we also have Grace Jones in this film playing Mayday. And probably more so Mayday than Zorin, I would say. I've seen her in a lot of Bond publicity throughout the years. And she's kind of played as this super strong, loyal henchwoman of Zorin, but she's a pretty cool number 2 in this movie. As a matter of fact, he has other people that work for him and show up from scene to scene, but I didn't really notice any of them as being anything noteworthy. So it's really these two, other than this like father figure that Zorin's trying to impress, I guess, as the movie goes on here and there. But I was curious about this because Christopher Walken is simultaneously known for being like a bizarrely good actor in really rare circumstances and just a terrible actor / line deliverer all of the time. So I was curious to see a young Christopher Walken play a villain in these movies, as well as Grace Jones, who doesn't talk a lot in the first half, shucks a little bit more towards the end of this movie. Zorin has kind of some evil plans, which we'll talk about in the plot. He's very confident in himself. He's, again, very confident in Bond. Probably, again, has several instances where he could have killed Bond, but decides not to do that. I did enjoy that he had kind of like this snarky, overconfident chuckle that he would do, ha ha, aw. He's just kind of Christopher Walken, more or less. Basically, they wrote this character to just be Bond versus Christopher Walken, which was pretty fun. And Mayday is a villain for almost the entire movie, but spoiler alert, she's going to turn heroic at the very end of this, and actually quite a bit at the very end of the movie when we see what she did. So she is definitely not a Bond woman per se, because she never falls for James, and only at the very, very, very last 5 minutes trade sides in this movie. So I can't count her in there for the Bond women. I guess it goes to Stacy is holding that up. But together, they're a pretty fun pair. Like I said, I gave the villains in this movie a 7 out of 10. Zorin's kind of just maniacal, and Mayday is kind of imposing, but they're a good pair. So 7 out of 10 on our villains for this. All right, our last two categories, the plot and the action. Finishing up here. And because school is in session now, I've had to watch this movie in, I believe, 3 or 4 chunks to finish it up when I have time here and there. So I did want to use the plot guide here on Wikipedia, courtesy, to take a look at this one and kind of re-go through the plot on this. Okay, so starting with James Bond, surprise. It goes to Siberia to find 003, who was an agent who was killed on the side of a mountain, if I recall correctly. And inside something he has, a locket, I believe, I think I recall, there was a microchip, which he takes back to Q. Q looks it over and says basically it's a copy of one that they already have. It lines up perfectly with what's on the microchip with the existing one, but with the difference of this one is set up to not be affected by EMPs, electromagnetic pulses. And this is one that's made by government contractor Zorin Industries, which is led by the titular Max Zorin, as it is. Now, the first part of this movie focuses a lot on horse racing and betting and jockeys and all of this horse culture, which I thought was actually kind of fun because it was, again, something a little bit different than has been in the Bond movies. And after you watch many of them in a row, such as I have here, you're kind of looking for that element of the plot or the setting or the action that stands out from stuff that's come before it. So Bond goes to visit a race course to check out who Zorin is. And we also have an appearance here by Sir Godfrey Tibbett, who is both a horse trainer and also an MI6 agent. And I have to do another shout out here. This is played by the ever wonderful Patrick Macnee, who I have loved since I was a little kid when he played in John Steed on the Avengers, not the Marvel Avengers, but the British TV show, The Avengers in black and white, with John Steed and Emma Peel. And so that's super fun because, earlier we also had, oh no, I'm blanking on her name at the moment now because my mind is just totally yucky. Oh, what was her name here? Help me find this. Let's see. Oh my gosh, she was in the thing. Oh my gosh. What was her name here? Diana Rigg. There we go. Wow, that took way too long. Sorry about that. Okay, so yes, back when Diana Rigg was playing a Bond woman, and now we have Patrick Macnee here playing a side character in this one. So I enjoy that they're both there. That's kind of fun and a little nod to the detective series that they had back then. Anyway, Tippett believes that some of Zorin's horses might be drugged, but the tests are positive. I'm sorry, negative. So they have no proof of that. And then we find out that Zorin is holding a horse sale later in the month. And so, of course, he tries to get into the horse sale. Before that happens, we have a scene at the top of the Eiffel Tower where Mayday kills someone and Bond chases her off the Eiffel Tower, but she, I believe, parachuted off the Eiffel Tower, and that's how she got away. So this is where they first meet for the first time. Okay, at the horse sale, Bond goes there, and we find out that Bond is interested in this lady who does not give him the time of day, and we find out Zorin writes her a check for $5 million. Which seemed odd, although as it turns out later in this plot, that's a bit of a red herring because what we, the viewer, assume that $5 million might be turns out to very much not be what that is. So we have Tibbett and Bond going to Zorin's laboratory where they find out that they are putting implants into the horses that release adrenaline. And Zorin realizes that Bond is an agent, and Mayday kills Tibbett while they are there at the estate. And Bond gets away essentially at this point. The KGB gets mad because they think Zorin was trying to kill Bond without their permission. And this is where we find out that Zorin was actually trained and financed by the KGB, but now he has gone rogue himself and gone into business for himself here. So Zorin is asked to talk to a group of investors, which he does, and his plan is to destroy Silicon Valley. So this is a very 1980s plot now, which is, again, pretty fun to see the update here. If he can knock all of them out, he would have a monopoly over the microchip manufacturing of the world. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Bond goes to San Francisco and he meets with a CIA agent who says that Zorin is basically not entirely human. He is now someone who has been experimented on with steroids. And this is a Nazi scientist who worked on as Zorin's vet and also racehorse breeding consultant. This is the fatherly figure I was talking about earlier. Bond goes to investigate an oil rig owned by Zorin and finds out that we have KGB agents that are there also trying to stop Zorin, but they're caught and killed. But Bond escapes with one of them, who he momentarily switches the tapes with to find some secrets that were confessed by Zorin onto tape. And so the KGB doesn't have the information they need. Bond and MI6 now have the dirty work, if you will, on Zorin at that point. All right, at this point, Bond goes to track down a geologist. This is Stacy Sutton. And this is the lady who had received the $5 million check. We find out that it wasn't because she's in on his evil plans. It's because he's trying to buy off the oil business and all of her ships and basically silence her and get her out of everything, which she refuses to do. So they go to City Hall where they break in to find the plans, and they find out that, let's see here. Zorin kills Stacy's boss, Mr. Howe, and fires Stacy for meddling after he fires Stacy for meddling in. And then we have this kind of elaborate trap where Zorin and Mayday trap Bond and Stacy in an elevator that is between floors. They set fire to the building to frame them and to murder them at the same time. And we have essentially here that the whole building's burning. Bond has to climb through the roof of the elevator and go out set of doors, come back in the other set of doors. Long story short, he escapes, and he and Stacy are free out of there. Okay, the end of this movie takes place. Our last big kind of set piece here is the mine, where they find out Zorin has been planting explosives along the Hayward and San Andreas faults, which would cause both to move at the same time, essentially, which would be the massive earthquake that people have talked about in California. It would flood Silicon Valley. All of the businesses there would be belly up, and he would have his monopoly that he looked for. He puts a Bond deep in the mine, surrounded by a ton of explosives, and it's basically to make sure that everything is a big enough explosion that this all happens. Well, Zorin turns out to be one of the most heinous guys we've seen in the movies. When they flood the mine first and kill all the workers who had been working for him down in the mine. And unfortunately, when he does this, he also kills some of Mayday's friends, some of the female people that were working for Zorin at the same time. So Stacy escapes, Bond fights Mayday, Zorin abandons her, and after she is abandoned by Zorin, Mayday comes around to realizing that Zorin's a piece of shit, and so she helps Bond play crane game and pull the giant bomb up out of the hole. They put it on a hand cart, and they try to take it out of the mine, but they realize that somebody has to manually hold the brake so that it doesn't keep stopping, and they have mere seconds to do this. So Mayday very nobly sacrifices herself, has Bond push her out of the mine, and she explodes as it gets outside. So that's the end of Mayday after she turns and helps Bond briefly. I shouldn't have said that was the last set piece, because then we get this actually pretty thrilling scene right afterwards, right outside the mine, where Stacy has been held captive inside a Zeppelin with Zorin and a couple of his buddies, and Bond has a hold of the rope hanging outside the airship. Zorin tries to knock him off. He basically runs him into antennas and into the Golden Gate Bridge, where Bond is able to anchor the Zeppelin to the Golden Gate Bridge. We have Stacy attacking Zorin to save Bond, and in the meantime, Zorin's goonies are knocked out, and the Zeppelin hits the side of one of the railings at the top of the towers of the Golden Gate Bridge, puncturing the Zeppelin. Like I said, this is all a pretty fun scene. Stacy jumps out and runs out onto these cables that, if you've ever seen at the top of like suspension bridges, are just absurdly high and dangerous. So she's out there with him. Zorin chases them out with an axe. We get a fight with Zorin and Bond, where Zorin falls to his death all the way down to the water below, presumably dying. And then Mortner, who is the Nazi scientist, horse breeder, fatherly figure guy, wakes back up and tries to shoot Bond, but he misses, and Mortner lights some dynamite they had on board, meaning to throw it at Bond, but Bond uses the axe to cut the airship rope free, The airship lurches, which causes them, Mortner, and the other guy in the Zeppelin to kind of float up jostly into the air when they don't have time to do anything with the dynamite, and it explodes. And we have no more bad guys. And then we have a fun scene at the end here where the KGB actually awards Bond the Order of Lenin for stopping Zorin's scheme, as he was rogue KGB. Even the Russians are happy to see this guy lose. And they can't find Bond, actually, in this one. There's no report of him. They think maybe he died. Q builds basically a mechanical robotic dog, which goes into Stacy's house through the cat entrance and goes up the stairs and finds that Bond and Stacy are in the shower at the time. Everything is okie dokie. So that's our plot outline. At times, this is a pretty fun plot. It's pretty self-contained. It has some different locations. Like I said, mines haven't been used too much. The horse equestrian farm was pretty fun, and the Zeppelin fight in particular, that whole thing was pretty good as well. So a 20 out of 30 on the plot. A little silly, like we're going to sink Silicon Valley, but kind of novel at the same time. Action in this movie, you've heard me praise a few scenes, but there really were some good moments in this hand-to-hand combat. And then, like I said, the Zeppelin scene, but also there's a really long scene with Stacy driving a fire truck while Bond is swinging around the streets of San Francisco at the end of the ladder. And it's all pretty thrilling. They have cops chasing them. They're jumping bridges, all these things. It's basically Speed and Fast and the Furious before there were those. So action's pretty good. Action 13 out of 15. Okay, our quote on this one comes from early in the movie as Bond is at the horse farm meeting a good-looking lady, and he says, "Well, my dear, I take it you spend quite a lot of time in the saddle." And Jenny, is the character's name, says back to him, "Yes, I love an early morning ride." We'll let that sit there. All right, our score on this one, we're going to add this up. We have 13, 27, 9, 12, 10, and 3. Going to give a view to a kill. A grand score of 74. Into the classic category. I recommend it. Doo-doo. Pretty good. Yeah, 74. So I'll have to see where that rates when all is said and done at the end here. But like I said, we're down to the final 3 Bonds, and their list is actually not as long as the first 3 Bonds. So at, an unofficial, but we're just past the halfway point here. Our top 3 movies still are From Russia with Love with an 83, Live and Let Die with an 82, and The Man with the Golden Gun with a 78 right now. So we'll see where that goes as we continue on and finish these up. After the 2 Timothy Dalton movies, the next one after that is GoldenEye. And while the guys were here this weekend, they did humor me and play 5 rounds of License to Kill for GoldenEye 007 for the Nintendo 64. We played on the old controllers and everything and suffered through how the graphics look, which was not very good, which I was worried about, but we did check it out. A couple of them begrudgingly, so thank you for doing that, gents. Appreciate it if you listen to this. But I will do my single-player playthrough of GoldenEye when we get to that point. So we're in 1985 right now. We're going to go to 87 for The Living Daylights next, and then 89 for License to Kill. And then we're going to take a big jump in time before we get to Pierce Brosnan arriving on the scene. So that's where we're at. Okay, everybody, I think that's it. I'll continue to try to squeeze one of these out a week if I can manage to find time in my very busy schedule to do that. But if you didn't check out our Monday episode again on the game, but wait, there's more. We actually play the game for you, so you can hear us pitching products to you out there. And some of them are quite funny. And like I said, we have one other one that we're going to throw out there for you as well, coming up here in the weeks to come. So that's it for now. This has been Cody with another episode of my James Bond series, and we'll see you all. Take care. Check us out on social medias. Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and all of those things. Also, check out our website, www.fawnpodcast.com. All right, it's been fun. Take care, everyone. We'll see you later. Bye.